Hello there, and welcome back to the Net Report. Christopher Rodriguez here. You can find me on Twitter at C_Rod223. And I'm joined here with co host Jacob.
I'm Jacob Kelly. You can find me on X/Twitter at Jacob Kelly USF. That's Jacob with a K. Let's just dive right into a super packed wild card weekend in the NFL. We're just going to kind of go over the games real quick and just kind of give our brief overall thoughts on this crazy weekend that we saw unfold. A surprising amount of upsets if you're looking at the Vegas odds, and we're going to start with probably the most consequential and most unexpected, I would say, if you would agree with that, Chris. But Cowboys and Packers. Very briefly, the Green Bay Packers marched into Dallas, and the box score won't show it as far as the score 48-32, but the Packers dominated the game. It was never close, even if the score only shows 16-point spread. The Packers steamrolled the Cowboys. It was an embarrassment from start to finish. They opened with, I want to say, somewhere between a 9 to 10 minute opening drive. The Packers did. They won the coin toss and Matt LaFleur chose to start with the ball and made a statement from the very first possession, ran the ball straight down the throats of the Cowboys in the first drive. They just kept feeding it to Aaron Jones, and Aaron Jones just kept pumping it down the field. They scored on the opening drive, and it just kind of never recovered from there. At one point in time, in the second quarter, it was genuinely a score of 27-0 after Dak threw a pick six. It was over before that, but that pretty much solidified the game. I mean, we can go into what this means for the Cowboys, but Packers pull off a huge upset as the wild card team. The Dallas 2 seed, like, this just continues to feed into the narrative that the Cowboys just can't get it done in the playoffs. This is 3 to 4 straight years of this happening.
Yeah, it
But
was it was definitely one of the most unexpected games this week. Jordan Love really carved up this Dallas defense, which was seen as one of the best defenses in the league throughout this year, and to get absolutely throttled, it was very surprising, especially coming from a Dan Quinn defense. I mean, we've seen it in Atlanta as the coach, but we didn't expect to see it with the Cowboys this year. It was just insane that from the first drive, like you said, they ran it down their throats with Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones had 3 touchdowns on the day. They just could not stop the run, and that just imploded into problems everywhere else.
yeah, like you said, the Dallas defense was what was very prominent. Even their offense was one of the top scoring offenses
Mm-hmm.
in the league. And if you watch the game, you could very clearly tell. Looking at the box score, you could not. CD had 9 receptions for 110 yards. Those all came in the second half. There was no chemistry between Dak and CD in the first half. Everything was mistimed. Route was run poorly. It was just it was off. Like, this combination, CD led the league in catches this year. Receptions, I want to say, and it was just there was nothing working there. Jair Alexander genuinely had CD in prison, and for someone who's been hyped up all year, Deron Bland, skate covering Romeo Dobbs for most of the game, 6 receptions, 151 yards, touchdown for Dobbs. Like, I don't know what happened. I mean, I've seen Dan Quinn defenses collapse under the pressure before. I don't really know how to explain it outside of just the Packers just out schemed them. It looks like they came in with more swagger. And yeah, like you said, Jordan Love, he is him. Like, he put on an electrifying performance for someone who didn't start the year so great, ended it red hot. That was one of my fears coming into this game. Not fears, one of my predictions is Cowboys, yes, easily the better team. On paper, no question. Almost every skill position, they outclass Green Bay in. Green Bay is one of the youngest teams in all of the NFL, but they were red hot coming into the playoffs, and Jordan Love just finds a way to do it. And he didn't even get Jaden Reed involved, his top playmaker over the past few weeks.
It was just
It's
insane to see. Like you,
unfathomable. No one really expected this, but
mm,
it happened now.
usually you see rookie or not rookie QBs, but like first time QBs in the playoffs struggle, and that was just not the case with Jordan Love. Absolutely lit up this Dallas defense, which is supposed to be one of the biggest strengths of their team, and it was just disappointing. The Cowboys, like they always say, they're just the accident waiting to happen. They couldn't get it done in the playoffs, and there's going to be a lot of repercussions. Whether Mike McCarthy's back, who knows? I could see a lot of the coaching staff going. I mean, it's going to be a
As
tough
far
off
as Dan
season.
Quinn's concerned, he could be hired elsewhere as a head coach. I know he's getting interviews.
Hmm.
Mike McCarthy, I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't think he'd last this long after losing that game. I think it's a foregone conclusion at this point. He is going to get fired. But it's just the Cowboys kind of suffer from the 76ers disease. They can't ever make it past the second round.
Hmm.
And this is no exception. They didn't get past the first round this time. And yeah, like I was saying earlier, uh, Dallas allowed the fifth least points in all of football this year and had scored the most points in all of football. And sure, they put up 32 points, but it didn't matter in the end.
Not
They gave
not
up
enough in the
48.
first half to keep it. Not enough in the first half to keep it competitive, and it just
They gave up 48 points in a playoff game. Like,
Mhm.
ask the Falcons what happened. Like, you can't give up 40 points in a playoff game. It just doesn't happen. Like, that's how you lose.
There will be massive repercussions for sure. Probably the most shocking game, like you said, but it's going to be a long off season for the Cowboys. But shout out to the Packers because wow, I did not expect this from them. They've been on a tear lately, and yeah, they face the 49ers next week, but I'm still excited to see what they got going forward. But we'll move on towards the Lions and Rams. Lions ended up defeating the Rams 24-23, and this really felt like a fight between two heavyweights. They were going back and forth throughout the entire game. Both teams called a great game, and it came down. I know you're going to mention it later. It came down to some late game execution, especially on the Rams part. But the Lions they pull off their first playoff win in I don't even know how many years it's been. It's been a long time. Let's go with that. And
They before this week they held the record for longest playoff win drought, which
mhm.
now a team later we will discuss hold.
But I mean, Jared Goff and the commentators mentioned it very much throughout the game. He's looked the most calm in this line system that he has in a long time, and I think that's very important. That's something that's kind of gotten swept under the rug. Just Jared Goff's resurgence as a QB. Like before, we never thought he could be a real playoff QB, and he's showing, in this offense, in the system, there's real potential there. They're still young, they're still developing, but this isn't a fluke. This isn't something that happened on accident. As for the
No, you're
Ram,
right. It didn't happen on accident, and I think everyone kind of saw something like this coming the moment Dan Campbell was in had his introductory press conference as coach, talking about biting off kneecaps and stuff. It's just a great attitude, and you can see on the field, off the field, in the locker room. The team respects him, rallies around him. Like I don't know anyone who dislikes Dan Campbell. Like he coaches a good game, he has a great attitude. He does what every fan wants. He goes for it on the risky fourth downs, and usually call good plays on them. Sure, you're not going to have a 100% success rate, but being a coach is assessing the situation, determining when and when not to go for it on fourth down, when and when not to go for the fake field goal or fake punt, all this sort of stuff. And we're going to talk about it with Baker too. Sometimes these quarterbacks get drafted in the first round, get paid all this money, and they're just not in the right system, or they're in these environments. Like Jared Goff was in LA, he lost the Super Bowl, he kind of lost confidence in himself. They get put in this right system where he doesn't need to do everything. He has weapons surrounded around him where he can just kind of play the game.
mhm,
You're right. He looks calm. He's not doing too much. He's playing the game as it comes to him. Is he perfect? No. But
but
the Lions are 12-5 on this season, and they just won a playoff game for the first time in, I want to say, over 20 years.
I think if I remember correctly, it was 1995. I don't quote me on that, but it's something like that.
28 years.
It's been
That's
a long
true.
time. So
And yeah, I'm going to talk about it because, yeah, we'll get to the Rams now, but I'm going to talk about where this game turned. I am genuinely baffled by Sean McVay's decision. I get it was 4th and 14, but you're on Detroit's 44-yard line with 4 minutes to go, and Detroit offense tends to do one thing well, and that's run the ball. Hey, Jameer Gibbs, here you go. Hey, David Montgomery, here you go. Like, If you need either of those guys to get you 3 yards, they're going to get you 3 yards. And so to punt it on 4th and 14 with 4 minutes to go, down one, like I get you're out of field goal range. I understand that. But a regular season game, okay, I can maybe see the rationale. This is a playoff game. It's do or die. Sean McVay's been here before. Like, he's coached in the playoffs. He's coached a team to a Super Bowl. I'm just genuinely baffled, especially, like, he doesn't have Jared Goff of old now. He has Matthew Stafford playing in Detroit, his old stadium. To not go for it is a little bit baffling. And that's kind of what turned the game. Like, it's over there. Like, you punt it and I guess you're hoping that you can then stop them from getting a few first downs, but
I mean,
that's just not what happened. And
hindsight's 2020, of course, too. At the time, I didn't think it was as egregious, but everything gets super magnified, after the fact. But of course, they don't stop them. You come back to that and you're like, well, maybe you should have gone for it. And then, there's 4 minutes left, even if they turn over on downs, you only have you have to stop them within one or two first downs. So it's not like they'd be able to they'd have to salt the game away with a couple first downs. And even if you're on a shorter field, that's not as big of a deal. So,
yeah, I think that's where I'm hung up at. Like, even if you turn the ball over on downs, like you just said, you're at their you then they have the ball starting at the 44-yard line of their own side of the field. So, like you said, then either way you need to prevent them from getting 1 to 2 first downs. How is it any different than punting it to them?
mm,
You might as well go for the chance. The only thing that changes is if you go for it, then there's a chance you get it, and then get in field goal range to win the game.
mm,
You're already there. You're on their side of the field. It's just a very bad coaching decision from Sean McVay, I think. But I mean, both teams played a great game. Like,
mm,
unfortunately, Kyron probably wasn't as effective, or not effective, I would say. He wasn't utilized as much I would have liked him to. But Matthew Stafford also threw
they
for
were trailing too, to
367
be fair.
yards, and Puka went absolutely nuclear. It sucks that
Mm,
a performance that was wasted, but Jared Goff and Amon-Ra St. Brown got it done. Like, Dan Campbell got it done. The Lions are moving on to the second round,
mm,
and not for nothing, this is a team to be a little bit cautious of. Like,
mm,
they've got some swagger to them. They're scrappy. They're chippy. Like, this is a team that it doesn't mind being the underdog. They've kind of been it all year. They've got punched in the mouth a few times, and they just keep coming back, it looks like. So, low scoring game, 24-23, but these Lions, man, I'm rooting for them all the way because these fans deserve it.
almost definitely. True. I don't even want to say underdog because we've expected big things from them, but it's exciting to finally see this young team get it all together and figure it out.
For sure, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And that leads us to probably the other biggest surprise, as far as Vegas money line's concerned, of the week, and that's Christopher's Eagles getting
Yep.
absolutely
Demolished in every facet of the game.
pantyhosed by the Buccaneers. It was You would have thought that it was close after the first half by looking at it, but similar to the box score for the Cowboys, Eagles just looked outclassed from step one.
Mm-hmm.
They played like they have played for, honestly, I'd say the past 6 weeks.
6, 7 weeks at this point. Yeah.
Um, they looked discombobulated. They looked like execution was just poor. They didn't play as a unit. There was no leadership. There was no cohesion. For every one good offensive play call I saw, it then followed up with 3 to 4 poor ones, or just
Mm-hmm.
very head scratching ones.
I think the biggest thing, like especially on the offense, the Giants kind of showed it to the world last week and on previous weeks, but this Eagles team hasn't had an answer for blitzes all year, and it was very much seen this game with Todd Bowles' defense. Third down, you knew the blitz was coming every time. Yet the Eagles were having play designs where guys were coming back on routes. They weren't even fully turned around by the time guys were in the backfield hitting Hurts. It just a lot of the routes did not make sense, and it's been like this all year for the Eagles. They've they've had really questionable play calling. It really felt like Brian Johnson was unprepared for this job as offensive coordinator, and as losing Shane Steichen hurt a lot. And you combine that with the defense that really, really struggled, especially after handing Matt Patricia the keys. It's no wonder this has been a complete disaster since I want to say week 12.
Yeah, after that 10-1 start, at 1-6, 1-7 since then, like just a complete and total collapse of a team that for most of the season and even before the season, I think even going to these playoffs, everyone kind of had circled as a top two favorite to make
Oh,
the
most
Super Bowl from the
definitely.
NFC side.
If they
Um,
weren't one, they were definitely two.
if anyone had them won, then I need to get them drug tested because
Oh no,
the Niners
are you talking before the season or after? Sorry. Before the season or
mid-season, sure, fair enough, fair
mid-season?
enough, fair enough.
Okay, okay. Sorry.
Um, But anyone who watched the game heard the commentators. Anyone who watched the Cast heard, I think it was Ray Lewis say it. I've never seen such poor effort, poor angles,
Mhm.
and poor tackling technique in all of the NFL. If I've in
Mhm.
any game I've ever watched, there was no cohesion. Everyone was going out for single tackles. No one was trying to play as a unit. Everyone was playing as a solo player. And if you watch the second half, I think Baker had 175 passing yards, and I want to say 138 of those were after the catch.
Mhm.
And you saw it.
And the majority
It,
of those routes were just completely wide open. And thank you for highlighting the
it were.
tackling because I completely missed that point. That's probably the worst thing of the night too. Just the lack of effort. James Bradbury
Yeah,
consistently just not tackling. Like I don't think I've ever seen. Like I'm sure there'll be a stat for it that comes out later. I haven't looked into it, but that's got to be close to the most missed tackles we've ever seen in a playoff game. Like just off of feel and
easily.
watching.
Just off the eye test. And yeah, I
And,
mean, they weren't doing anything crazy. It was, hey, slant, curl.
mhm,
Let's throw the flat real quick. They got beat on one pretty good play. There was we're not Shane Bradbury, where Bradbury just got absolutely killed.
mhm.
And then Kevin Byard just fell down for whatever
Yes.
reason on the I think it was David Moore, I want to say it was.
Mhm.
Um I, Again, that was poor tackling, but that was the deep shot and that kind of solidified the first half and it was I mean, we watched it at the you had a feeling at the end of the second half that I'm sorry, at the end of the first half that hey, the Eagles scored, it's a one score game, maybe they'll make a game of this. Then they have a drive to end the first half. Poor offensive play calling. They start ball in the second half. Poor play calling on the offensive side. Don't score. What then does Tampa Bay do? They follow it up with a 56-yard touchdown pass to Trey Palmer. That was just complete blown coverage. And then Chris Godwin with the 23-yard pass was the nail in the coffin.
Mhm.
I can't highlight a single player besides maybe Devontae Smith who played a good game for the
Mhm.
Eagles.
And that includes Jalen Hurts too. I know he hasn't played well. I'm still not out on him as many people are. Like with there's how fans are overreactive. A lot of
I wouldn't
people.
say I'm out on him, but you look at
Mm,
his box score, 25 for 35
mm,
completion. That's a good percentage. 250 yards, decent with the touchdown. I mean, that's fine.
it goes
But I'm
beyond
gonna
the
be honest,
box
he
score
looked
though.
awful. He looked awful.
Exactly.
He physically watched the blitzes. Like he called out if he didn't call out the blitzes, that's a different conversation we need to have because everyone saw it. But
Hmm.
he clearly picked up on the blitzes. I feel like, and either the play calling was bad or he didn't audible correctly because every time they blitzed, it was a disaster.
And that's the
And,
thing
like,
about this season as a whole. I don't know. Like I can't definitively say, okay, is this just Jalen not being able to pick up these blitzes, or is it just horrendous play call? Because like I mentioned earlier, I feel like a lot of the route designs just were poor against the blitz, and they've continuously struggled against it. But we didn't really see this last year, so it's just I don't know who it is yet, but I'm not willing to fully give Jalen the blame like I know some people are.
yeah, and I mean everyone's been hyping up Baker and this Bucks team, and listen,
That they played a
they
great game. I can't take
they
anything away
played a
from
great
them.
game, but they were also not without their flaws.
Hmm.
Like I get that they beat this team,
They
but
should have beat them by more with some of those drops
let's
too.
take it. Let's take a second to realize that there was offensive drops.
Hmm.
There was picks that were dropped that Baker threw. Two of them in the first half alone, and for all yeah, they made the playoffs. They won their division. You throw this team in any other division, they don't win 9 games.
Hmm.
I'm sorry, they don't. But hey, the NFL is not a regular season game. It's a playoffs. You make it in, do what you can do.
Yep.
They made it in. They they were never a favorite in this game. as far as anyone from the betting community is concerned, and they just beat the reigning NFC champions by 23 points.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of implications of what this means for the Eagles going forward.
Mhm,
We'll see, similar to how Dallas is going to proceed,
mhm,
what that means for the coordinators and the coach and the players. But the Bucks are moving on,
mhm.
and now it's going to be up to we're now going to see a playoff game of Baker Mayfield versus Jared Goff, and that will be something.
You couldn't have convinced me that 2, 3 years ago, but here we are. We're in the best
I
timeline.
We are in the best timeline.
We'll see where the Eagles go from here. I assume massive changes are gonna be had, but you know, we'll see. There's a lot of questions. Disappointing season. I'd argue this is more disappointing than the 2020 Steelers, the bigger collapse at least. But yeah, we'll move on to the next game. We had Texans versus Browns, where wow, if CJ Stroud has not had his coming out party, this is certainly it. The Texans beat the Browns 45-14, and it really throughout the first half it felt like it was going to be a real shootout. You had them going back and forth. I believe you had I want to say the
We had a game.
Texans. Yeah.
We
Texans
had a
were.
game going there for a
Mhm.
second.
No, they're trading punches back and forth. You had some long completions with Joe Flacco. He had a couple touchdowns. He looked actually really good in the first half, and then it kind of fell. The wheels fell off, and it just once the second half rolled around, it fell apart. And the Texans were really able to run away with this game. C.J. Stroud was amazing. He had, I want to say, 3 touchdowns. Hold on, I'm pulling up the box score right now.
Yeah, he threw 16 for
Mhm,
21, 274 yards, and 3 touchdowns.
mhm,
And yeah, he was electric. Joe Flacco was electric in the first half too, and then within 2 minutes of each other in the third quarter, threw 2 pick sixes.
mhm.
And that was the game. Like
Yeah,
that,
it was
the
over
game was
after
over at
that.
the point. It was over after the first pick six, and Joe Flacco really said, "Here's the game for sure." Um, Remember all that talk in like the pre-draft process, like of all those like QB tests that they did, and
Oh my
CJ
goodness,
Stroud had like one of
yes.
the worst scores of all time, and everyone was freaking
That
out.
that's
All
ever
this sort of stuff.
that test is always gonna live in infamy. Like they will. I forgot. I think it was Pat McAfee. I saw on his show basically mentioned that test is gonna like be thrown into the garbage and laughed at for years to come just because of C.J. Stroud.
I think Bryce Young had one of the highest scores
Hmm.
ever, and CJ Stroud had one of the worst ones ever. Everyone was concerned. Ohio State quarterback. There's never really been a good one from there.
Hmm.
All this sort of stuff. And now, funny enough, we hear like after he's popping off, like, oh well, actually, the Panthers wanted to take him, but they thought no. And oh, I heard the Raiders wanted to actually trade up, but Josh McDaniels decided he wanted Jimmy Garoppolo and said all these sort of things. Oh, everyone actually wanted CJ Stroud. It's like,
Well, we're doing a
did you
180
just
here.
all the stuff I heard before the draft was, I don't think anybody wants him. People are kind of hesitant to take him. And listen,
They thought
D'Amico,
the Panthers
no,
when
go
there
ahead.
were rumors about Stroud going 1 to the Panthers, there were people like you're insane, you're crazy. Like so
Yeah,
definitely there's going to be a
we're
lot of
seeing a
revision.
180,
There's going to be a lot of revisionist history, especially as it goes forward,
100%.
because people are going to be like, "How'd you take Bryce Young over Stroud?" But that's just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. But I
And
mean,
let's be fair. It's
mhm,
1 year of Bryce Young. It's 1 year of Stroud.
I'm
But
not
I
out on
mean,
Young, but it's not looking good
mm,
right now.
it looks bad for him. But to stay on topic, this kid is a rookie. We need to remember that this kid is a
Mhm,
rookie with a rookie head coach playing on a team that had zero expectations. Zero. They had the worst pick in the draft. They had the number one pick in the draft last year. I lied. The
mhm.
Bears did. They had a pretty. They were terrible last
I
year.
think it was two. It was
Terrible.
2 or 3 because they ended up trading for one of them. It was 2. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. But either way, rookie head coach D'Amico Ryans, just like Dan Campbell, has created a culture.
Hmm.
Has
Co-
created a
Coach of the
culture
year,
that
if you ask
players
me.
want to play. 100%. 100%. Yes. It's incredible. They don't even have Tank Dell.
Mm.
Their
Nico
best
looked
offensive.
phenomenal too. Like that, the fact that they were able to scheme their receivers like that without Tank Dell, and you look at the roster. I mean, these aren't household names. Like Nico Collins has been great this year, but I wouldn't call him necessarily an elite receiver. He's been great. Don't get me wrong.
No, by no means.
They
They,
had
they
that
dropped
one.
31 points on
Mhm,
what was generally regarded as a top three defense in the entire football
mhm.
league.
They had that
31
one.
points with a rookie head coach, rookie quarterback.
It's insane. I mean, and some of the play calling too, especially like with it being like D'Amico Ryans, like whole thing defense and whatever. They've got a good system in offense too. Like that play design with Brevin Jordan, where he got that 76-yard design. That was a really good play design, and you've seen that all year.
What's funny is I say that we've seen that same tight end. It's like a
Hmm.
slip route where he just sneaks out to the
Hmm.
outside and streams out there. We've seen that happen with the
And
Patriots did
the
it with
read by
Pharaoh
Stroud
Brown for
was.
like a 50. Pharaoh Brown got a 56-yard touchdown, I think, earlier in the year from the Patriots with that same similar route. But
Hmm.
hey, it's working. You might as well keep doing it.
And the
And
reads by Stroud have been great too. I mean, that's half the battle too.
to rookies, it for sure is. Like half the battle is, hey, just don't throw the pick. Take the easy play.
Hmm.
Like it's just that simple. I really don't know what more to say. Like the Texans have genuinely shocked me. I wouldn't say this result of a game is shocking because I think that I don't really know. Like I just never had faith in the Browns as far as going deep into the playoffs. It would have been fun, but I'm just really impressed with the Texans, man.
Hmm.
I'm so happy for this team. It's weird. A lot of the teams that won, I'm just happy for. Like a lot of really fun results. Like young Jordan Love. He's not a rookie, but it's his first year starting the entire year after the Rodgers years. Like that's incredible. Jared Goff leading this Lions team again. The
Resurgence.
Detroit Lions
Hmm.
wasted Calvin Johnson and Barry Sanders' career. Detroit Lions, like bags over our head because we had a winless season. Detroit Lions. Jared Goff led them to a playoff win. Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I mean, that team itself isn't like overly exciting because of bad history, but like this is 1 year after Tom Brady left them. They
Baker
have
Mayfield resurgence.
50, 60 plus dead cap space, or they have 50 million in dead cap. Baker leads him to a victory. Who had been discarded from a lot of teams. He had to win his starting job, and now the Texans with a rookie again, coach and quarterback. Like this is a lot of
It's
fun
fun for the
results for
league.
Wild
It's
Card
fun for
Weekend.
the league
It
for
is.
sure.
It is very fun for the league. We're not seeing the usual four teams dominate. Like we may see that next week, but for now, we're not seeing that. Um, and that leads us into what everyone was hoping was going to be the greatest snowball of all time, and it turned into the Bills just dominating the game.
Hmm.
31-17, Bills beat the Steelers. A lot of talk will be had about Mike Tomlin's future with the Steelers. This game really just boiled down to Buffalo's the better team, and they have the best player of both teams. Josh Allen has really been carrying this Bills team for the probably past 4 to 5 weeks. Um, and I mean, I'm sorry to be negative, but who thought Mason Rudolph was going to win a playoff game in Buffalo?
I don't think anyone did. I hate to be that guy, but 100% agree.
Like 17 offensive points, that's about what I expected from the Steelers in a playoff game on the road. Like, I'm more so just impressed by what Buffalo did. They made a statement and they won pretty easily. Like it was close-ish, but they always felt like they were in control of the
Hmm.
game. There really isn't much to say as far as like the Bills are just the better team. Like, sorry, Steelers, like you didn't have TJ Watt. You never really had an identity this season. Yes, you made it to the playoffs as a wild card, but there was never really any hope for this team. I'm sorry.
And one thing I will say is when Josh Allen's playing like this, like I know it's against an inferior team, when he's playing like this, though, they have a chance to win any game. And I think that's going to be
When
the
he
main
goes
theme.
full Superman Josh Allen
Mhm.
and isn't making uh the
Decisions.
stupid
Yep.
throws and decisions and fumbling, he's easily a top 3 quarterback. The problem is I haven't seen it consistently done for an entire season where I'm like,
Hmm.
yes.
But if he strings it together for I mean, hey, the playoffs are only three if you have the bye, four if you have the. All you
Some
need
teams
is
win the
a
Super Bowl because they're hot at the right time.
So, I mean, if there's man, they've really strung it together this like last half of the season. I like this Bills team a lot going forward. Like I said, Allen had that ridiculous run. He was great in that game and 3 touchdowns passing. I really think the Bills have a real chance going forward, and I'm excited to see them. I'm excited. Well, we'll talk about it later, but we're excited for the matchup. We're excited to see what they do in the playoffs.
And I guess that leads us into
Yep,
our last game of the slate,
yep.
Chiefs Dolphins, which
That
Dolphins fans. I live in South Florida, and Dolphins fans were not happy about this result.
it's been
I
rough for
think
them.
I think most people expected the Chiefs to win. It just, again, for a team that had the second best offense all season to put 7 points up, it's pretty disappointing.
It's
Um,
disappointing, and I mean, it follows a lot of the theme we've seen throughout the season, though. And I hate to say it like this because they've been a fun team to watch. I've loved seeing Tua kind of reverse the narrative around him, but this is a team that's really struggled against winning teams, and it's been no different. I think the only team they beat in the regular season that had a winning record was the
Cowboys.
Cowboys. Yep,
I'm looking
and
at it now, and they 100% are. They've every other team who had a winning record, they lost to.
and I mean,
Oh, I lied. The Texans, but they beat the Texans in week 2,
and
so
that was
a
and
little bit different.
yeah. So I mean, and the Texans didn't always have a winning record, so I guess, but still, basically, we're seeing a lot of the same thing. They cannot match up with these teams that are have winning records that are good, and they've got demolished in the playoffs. It's unfortunate to see, but I mean, as for the Chiefs, at least, like, we finally really saw their playmakers step up, and that's a really good sign going forward into the playoffs. Like,
Playmakers, he means Rasheed Rice and Travis Kelce, and
hey, but
that's it.
sometimes that's all you need, man. I
Oh
mean,
no, in the playoffs, I agree.
mhm,
A better team will scheme better, though.
100%.
But shoot, 15 catches between Rasheed Rice and Travis Kelce. The
Mhm,
problem is that we saw the same themes as we've seen the last few weeks. MVS dropped the pass. Um, they're not. I mean, they're not averaging as many rushing yards as I'd like to see them, but the Dolphins play decent defense up front with their
mhm,
linebacker core. So we'll see. I think if this team is going to see success, it is going to hinge on the success of Pacheco in the
mhm,
trenches. And can someone not named Kelsey and Rice step up? Like, if
100%.
MVS or Nicole Hardman can actually make some sort of effect with this offensive team, then they're gonna see success. Mahomes is gonna do Mahomes things. Like, it's Mahomes. He is going to go on the road for the first time in a playoff atmosphere, and we'll see how that looks like. But at the end of the day, he's the best quarterback in the league, and it shouldn't really be debatable. Like, he's the most
None at
talented,
all.
and it's not even close, to be honest with you. But yeah, I mean, the Dolphins showed the trend that we saw all season. They can't beat good teams, above average teams. Like, they just
Mhm.
can't.
And
They
to
had
be fair, they've had injuries, not making excuses for them, but it did play a factor. Where just
the injuries, unfortunately, are on the
especially
defensive side of the
defensively.
field.
Yep.
And I mean, if you watch the game, they played a good defensive game.
Mm.
They just scored 7 points, and for the best offense in the league, or second
You're
best
not
offense in
you're
the
not
league,
beating
that's
them with
pretty
only
putrid.
7. You're not
I,
beating
I
the
mean,
Chiefs only scoring
Tua
7.
looked terrible.
Mm.
Tua looked terrible. The offensive players looked terrible. I mean, only 5 receptions for Tyreek Hill is pretty crazy considering one of them was.
Mhm.
Yeah, here's a stat for you. Tyreek Hill had 62 yards in that game. 53 of them came on the touchdown pass.
Yep.
Like,
That's that.
clearly we're not involving Tyreek Hill enough. Jalen
Mhm.
Waddle may as well have been non-existent in the game, if you ask me. Like, when Cedric Wilson and River Crawcraft are your second and third leading receivers, like, I wonder where the problem was. And they could never really get anything going on the rushing side of the ball. And I mean, they didn't try too much because they were always playing from behind, but they weren't seeing a great amount of success. I didn't think their defense played bad, in all honesty. I mean, they played fine, good, like 26 points. That's not terrible against this Chiefs offense when they were cooking. But I mean, I don't know if it's a Mike McDaniel thing or if it's a Tua thing, but
I
they just
think
can't beat good
I mean
teams.
part of it too, and uh, I can say yes and no when it comes to this too. I think part of it is just more continuity, more like, because this is really the first playoff run they've had because Tua got injured last year. I know that's not entirely the case because we're seeing teams like the Texans and Packers just come out swinging, but I mean, to be
But
fair, they didn't have to. They
we've
didn't
seen
have to
the
play the
same
Chiefs.
trend all year long.
Hmm.
Yeah, they have to play the Chiefs, but if they got matched up with the Bills,
I don't think it
they
would have
would have
been any
lost
different.
too.
Hmm.
No, it wouldn't have been any different. Sure, if they somehow get matched with the Texans or the Browns, we may be having a different conversation. Or the Steelers. But at some point, they would have had to play the Chiefs and Bills
And it
anyways.
wouldn't have mattered.
So it wouldn't have mattered. It's like, oh wow, you beat the Steelers in round one. Good for you.
Hey,
Problem is the Bills actually looked dominant when they did it. Like they were in control of that game consistently. The Dolphins just and another like thing that's being thrown around there is they can't play in cold weather either.
living in Miami will
I,
do that to you.
I guess. It's just disappointing. I won't say it's unexpected though. This is probably the result I expected from this matchup. But Chiefs are moving on, and they're going to be going on the road against the Bills now.
Yep, and that's gonna
But
be one fun of matchup.
that's your NFC and AFC wildcard breakdown.
Mhm.
We're going to see what next week holds for us. We will be back later this week with our NFL, I believe it's the divisional round preview. Just to give you a peek of that, we got Texans at the Ravens, Packers at Niners. Then we got the Bucks at Lions and Chiefs at Bills. I'm in love with all four of those games. We'll make our picks later on in the week. You can. I'm Jacob Kelly again. You can find me on X/Twitter, Jacob Kelly USF. Again, that's Jacob with a K.
Yep, and I'm Chris. You can find me on X at C_Rod223. And if you enjoy this type of content, please like and subscribe, and it helps us out a ton.
Yeah, like, subscribe, share. We could use all the support we can get. But thanks for listening, guys.
Yep. Thank you for tuning in, and take care.